On a football Wednesday, good afternoon, everybody. This is the South Side Beat. He is Chris Halicke. I am Corey Crisan. I didn't plan a fancy intro today. Usually I have some banter topic or something beforehand. Chris, happy hump day, Mr. Nick of Time. Everybody joining in, of course, 3 to 3:30 every Monday through Friday here on YouTube, DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube, and of course later in podcast form. Chris, I want to run with something today on this show, and it revolves around the title of the show, Is Two Really a Pattern? And on this 22nd episode of the Southside Beat on this September 27th, 2023, I have two different topics to bring when it comes to two being a pattern. And the first thing I want to go into, and I'm going to expound more on this later on DKPittsburghSports.com, is the Steelers offense doing something twice. And that is putting together a similar effort like they were able to do against the Raiders. Meaning, yes, it was an improvement, although it's not exactly what we want. Yeah. The second part to that, to me, Chris, is the schematic, if you will, using a Tomlinism, similarities that the Texans on defense bring to the 49ers. And of course, the 49ers defensive coordinator from last year was DeMeco Ryans, who is now the head coach of the Houston Texans. And today, Kenny Pickett spoke on the South Side, and there's some bullet points from him in our feed on DKPittsburghSports.com. New and improved feed, by the way. So if you haven't checked it out yet, new and improved. We're working some bugs out still, as per usual, with anything new. But DKPittsburghSports.com, it's all there. But Chris, this is a double entendre of sorts, and it starts with how Kenny Pickett and the Steelers offense can really get through a Texans defense that, at least systematically, has some similar notes to it than what the 49ers brought for pretty obvious reasons.
Well, I think there is one major difference right now, and I brought this up on DKPittsburghSports.com yesterday, actually, with my preview of the Texans, and that is, and Mike Tomlin pointed this out, they don't have almost any splash plays. I think they have 2 picks so far. Mm-hmm. They only have 7 passes defensed, and that's not a lot. I think the vast majority of NFL teams right now are in the double digits there. So 7 in 3 games. I mean, they're barely getting 2 a game. But as Mike Tomlin also said, they are keeping everything in front of them. They don't let anything go over the top. I think teams have only thrown deep to them 7 times. Mm-hmm. That's not a lot. And I think the average depth per target is like 5.7 yards or something like that. They're keeping everything, and I think that mark is like second lowest in the league. So they're not letting anybody get over the top. And so when you look at what the Steelers are doing on offense and how they've scored at 2 of their touchdowns, it's been through passes deep down the field. Mm-hmm. And so obviously the Steelers want to continue to do that. They want to get George Pickens involved and get him out in the open. And then you also want to use Calvin Austin's speed to his advantage. And one of the ways that you can do that is just run past everybody. Well, kind of hard to do that when the Texans don't let you do that. And so how do you take advantage of that? And that's, I think, going to be the challenge for Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin and the Steelers on offense this year. Or this Sunday.
This Sunday. Now, as Rick brings up, don't both coordinators come directly from San Francisco? The head coach and the offensive coordinator are 49ers exports. Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator for the Texans, came over to Houston from San Francisco. He was there, I believe it was 6 seasons. So yes, offensively, there's going to be some similar flavor there as well. But it's no secret that DeMeco Ryans got to where he got to because of his genius on defense and how he's able to deploy his certain pieces around, and the defenses he was able to call, not just in San Francisco, but also through these first 3 games in Houston. And when you look at last week, the Texans were able to shut down Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, really good offense and really good personnel. Yeah. So if the Steelers want to be able to build off of what they were able to do against the Raiders, and Kenny Pickett talked about it today, how schematically similar to the 49ers, good personnel on all 3 levels, it's not going to be easy for the Steelers to do it. And this is a conflicting factor to me because, Chris, I believe that, and Mike Tomlin said it last week, the reason why I put the title of the show is Two Really a Pattern. Yeah. Mike Tomlin talked about the first 2 games of the Steelers season being a pattern as far as the offense is concerned. and deficiencies and underperforming and lack of execution and however else you want to spin it. But Chris, that could go the other way.
Lack of mojo,
although maybe not. But that too is a pattern can go the other way as well, as long as they're able to build off of the traits and the habits that they formed against the Raiders. And now this defense, while it's not as soft as the Raiders per se was, it's going to be a better defense. But there's still signs from that offense that we saw on Sunday that are translatable into a matchup like this, I think.
Yeah, Mark asks here, Kenny Pickett is ranked as 15th rated passing leader. Do you feel like this is progress? I don't necessarily look just at like how he's doing it as opposed to the rest of the league, because I mean, if you were to go compare him to the rest of the AFC North, like he's the leading passer in the AFC North right now. Do I think Kenny Pickett is the best quarterback in the division? No, I do not. He's not. I mean, say it's Monica Halo, Mike.
No mojo,
no more.
Nope.
Hey, man, if Mike Tomlin's gonna give the media some BS, man, I'm gonna milk that cow as much as I can.
Pickett's also 25th in the NFL in passer rating, if you believe in that kind of thing.
No, I mean, it's just honestly, I just look at the tape. What is he doing? Obviously, the first 2 games, he missed a lot of throws that an NFL quarterback can't miss. He was better last week. He was more accurate. He didn't miss as many throws. He's still not seeing defenses the way I'd necessarily want him to. I mean, there was the one where he rolled out and tried to hit Calvin Austin on the rollout. Like his first read was open. And, there are people who have been talking about, Kenny Pickett being a first read guy. It's like, you didn't see the defense right because your guy was open.
Yes.
You saw your first read. You didn't think he was open and you bailed. And that's the other part of it, is outside of his ability to break down coverages and see defenses. It's also about him being more consistent with staying in the pocket. Listen, I'm not saying stay in the pocket and get killed back there every single time. Absolutely use your legs to your mobility. And part of that is on the offensive line. But whenever a throw is there and there's still just too often there's happy feet. There's just, I want to bail. And I understand a quarterback's mentality, especially one that has traditionally used his legs in order to make big plays. That's kind of what they want to default to. And in order for him to grow, he's going to have to become a better pocket passer. When you look at a guy like CJ Stroud, dude is really, really good in the pocket. Like he is really, really good in the pocket, especially for being a rookie. I see that. I was just watching the tape on him. I'm like, man, if Kenny Pickett were like that in the pocket, he'd be top 10 quarterback in the league. Easy. Because Pickett's accurate enough to do that. It's just
Let's delve into a little special teams note real quick here. And Swan269 brings it up. What do you think the odds are of the punter they signed replacing Presley Harvin?
Brad Wing.
Of course, that comes to Brad Wing,
who 2014
makes his triumphant return to the Steel City. The Steelers signing Brad Wing to their practice squad today. Presley Harvin with a hamstring injury. And what I will say about this move is they wouldn't have signed Brad Wing if they didn't think that Presley Harvin, was injured. Like if they thought Presley was healthy, if they thought, okay, he's definitely going to go Sunday, they wouldn't have done anything like this. So this is a precautionary move on a surface level. And, we'll find out, obviously, injury reports should be dropping after 5:00. The Steelers are practicing late today, a 3 to 5 practice today. So as we speak right now, they're probably on the field stretching. And then no locker room today after. So even if Presley punted today, we couldn't confirm that or deny that.
Yeah.
So we'll find out with the injury report this afternoon what the Steelers release as far as Presley Harvin is concerned. But Chris, again, the Steelers wouldn't have signed Brad Wing to their practice squad if they thought Presley Harvin was healthy. So it's at least an insurance policy. They have a punter on the roster ready to go for Sunday. But again, the fact that they made this move on Wednesday could also mean some kind of a tell to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's just, it's your due diligence to bring somebody else in right now, because you never know. Even if you think the hamstring is probably going to be good by Sunday, but all it takes is one little tweak. All it takes is one punt in practice. All it takes is just any little thing jogging the wrong way, somebody scared him in the locker room and he jumped too quickly, and just all of a sudden that hamstring tightens up a little bit more, and all of a sudden he can't punt. It's just they're doing their due diligence to bring somebody in.
Sure.
Obviously, participation will always, not to try to steal the words right out of Mike Tomlin's mouth, but let participation always be the guide in terms of how often or how much, what the likelihood of, whether they're going to be available or not. So,
keep in mind too, I know people are asking what's the corresponding move coming for Brad Wing. Don't forget Simi Fehoko was signed off the practice squad the other day by the Chargers. So no subtraction needed.
Simi Fehoko, for anybody who just heard Fehoko and signed off, don't freak out.
Yes,
Braden's still there. I do like this question by that's
Biad. I'm going to go with Biad. Have you guys ever seen someone report something without getting confirmation? And if so, what was the fallout? Yes, I have. It depends on where you're at. Honestly, if you're doing it with NFL, you are messing with some really kindling fire there.
I think the question is probably directed at just Steelers related or NFL related.
Sure. I mean, if it's anything, this I think this comes back to the report from last week about Matt Canada, and you got to keep in mind the context of the whole thing. And Mike Tomlin obviously refuted it on Tuesday. This guy's not in the building every day like I am. He's not anywhere in Pittsburgh. He's a national guy who writes for whatever blog or column or whatever it is. Again, he is not here. So if you want to trust reporting that is not in the building on a consistent basis, that's on you. But I will say this talks about consumerism, and I'm going into journalism and all that other kind of stuff because you're bringing the teaching gene out of me right now. But if somebody goes and reports something without confirmation, they're going to face some kind of consequence, whether that's from their own employer, whether that's from the team, whether that's the team's not going to punish them, but the team could alienate them. There's no rule against alienation. So you have to be really careful in this industry, and your reputation as an individual and for the, employer that you work for goes way south. And depending on the situation, the gravitas of the situation, it could go completely flat and kaput and just blow up in your face. So there's always risky business when you're doing something like that.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like when you see somebody report something without getting confirmation, what I default to there is if you see something in practice. Because if you see something in practice and you report it without confirmation, there's obviously, there will be consequences. Somebody from the Steelers will come to you and say something from their PR department. I think if like a first time offense, they don't like strip your credentials or anything like that. Now, granted, I was on the season one or on the beat one season, so I'm not speaking from wealth of experience here, just 1 year there, but I think if it were to happen repeatedly, it would get to the point where somebody's credentials are stripped. But when it comes to like national reporting and stuff like that, like, listen, he can report something like that and he could back up his sources to the editor, and his editor could be like, yeah, I mean, we that's a source we usually trust or whatever. And it is what it is. And then at that point, it's a he said, she said thing. It is what it is. But, when it comes to like stuff that you see in practice, like, you have to get a player to confirm that stuff. If you don't, you could get into some trouble with the team and possibly have your credentials revoked.
Okay. HMJ 077 mentions he saw Kendrick Green play left guard last week.
This offensive line.
That matchup will be entertaining. This is a weakness of the Texans, and this is per KPRC TV in Houston. Left tackle Josh Jones expected to miss Sunday with a hand injury. Laramie Tunsil, all-pro left tackle, on track to miss his third straight game.
Yeah.
With a knee injury. And look, if the Texans are missing that and you have Kendrick Green playing left guard.
And their regular right tackle was placed on IR earlier. Yeah. So, I mean, they are hurting bad on the offensive line, especially at tackle. You have Kendrick Green as your starting left guard. I think everybody in Steelers Nation can see how, how the Kendrick Green experience went.
Yeah.
This is a really, really banged up offensive line. And, I will say CJ Stroud and Tank Dell, that connection could be very, very dangerous. And it will not shock me if the Texans score a 60 or 70 yard touchdown because of they exploited some sort of busted coverage there. However, with the Texans being as banged up on the offensive line as they are, I am really concerned. Like, going into this week, I was kind of leaning maybe picking the Texans to win this game. like legitimate, like they're really well coached. They're a very underrated football team. I mean, very underrated even from the beginning of the season. But that offensive line it's so banged up. I just don't see how they're going to stop the duo of TJ and Alex. I just don't. D'Amico Ryans just called it. Like he just spoke with Steelers reporters and everything. He called it almost unfair. And that's dealing with a regular offensive line, much less not having your primary left and right tackles there.
Yeah. Biad does clarify, by the way, talking about the Steelers, because again, anything that happens at practice today, and even if I see it, it didn't happen because no locker room access. We can't talk to players after today. So I couldn't confirm anything today that happened today, if that makes sense.
You would have to wait until tomorrow to ask somebody like, what, did this
about
happen?
Something today. But then there's like stuff you have to follow about asking the question. You can't like lead them on with the question. It's very tedious at times. And you know what? The Steelers are allowed to control what comes in and out of their building as they please. Brent Haynes asks, what do you think Connor's spot is on the team? Do we have too many weapons on offense to really use the skills that he has? This is about Connor Hayward. Now, they want Connor Hayward to be the fullback, the wingback, the tight end, the H-back, whatever you call it. That role is Connor Hayward, which is why it made Monty Pottebaum, Monty Pottebaum retired, and it was like, okay, we'll put Connor Hayward there. And then this Kendrick Green fullback experiment that everybody seemingly bit on in Latrobe for a week died emphatically. And it was like, okay, we'll just put Connor Hayward there. Like there was no second thought about Connor Hayward's role on this team. And while Darnell Washington is not being utilized in the passing game as much as a tight end, he's running routes, but he's not getting targets.
Yeah.
It brings into question, well, why can't they use Connor Hayward for anything like that? Now, if you watch some of the Raiders game, you'll see Connor Hayward on the field, but he's not lined up like wide as much. He's not lined up, as your split tight end. He's just kind of hanging out as a lead blocker for Najee and Jalen and helping with pass protection. So, Connor Hayward is not going to get the Pat Freiermuth treatment at tight end. He's just not. And he's not going to get the Najee Harris or Jalen Ward treatment at running back because, again, he's just not. This is his role. His role is to be in as a blocker. He'll go out for a few routes. And, it's a serviceable role. It's a role that helps out the Najee Harrises, the Kenny Pickett's, the Pat Freiermuths of the world. But it's not the role that maybe, you would want from a number one tight end. He's just not going to be that kind of guy right now for this team.
Yeah, the thing is that, if you were using Connor Hayward a little bit more often, had him on the field a little bit more often and tried to use him in a number of ways, even if he's a decoy doing one thing. I remember like one play specifically, the jet sweep he ran against the Raiders last year to put the game on ice, maybe use him in motion just one time, for a fake jet sweep or something, try to do some sort of, Matt Canada's offense loves smoke and mirrors. Try to use some smoke and mirrors with him. There's just nothing going on. So I think, as the offense is trying to find it, first off, when it comes to the list of priorities on what the offense needs to fix, finding a role for Connor Hayward is far below the far down on the list. Kenny Pickett's got to get right. The offensive line's got to block better. Najee has got to be a little bit better at finding the holes, especially in zone concepts. Receivers need to run better routes. There's just a number of things that the offense needs to work the kinks out on. Finding a role, a way to properly utilize Connor Hayward and where he helps keep the defense on their toes could be something that, is used eventually, and maybe they figure it out by middle of the season or second half of the season. But I love this question here by Mr. Nick of Time because
absolutely I was going to highlight that too.
Yeah, I was like, do you think we'll play soft coverage again to force Stroud to throw? I don't know what obviously they're when Corey's there to talk to Matt Canada and Terrell Lawson tomorrow. They're not going to tip their hand and say what they're going to do.
No.
But just from watching the tape of and I haven't really done too much of a deep dive, but just from watching the tape of the Jacksonville game last week, when CJ Stroud was the most confused, it was whenever they were really trying to throw some exotic looks at him.
Yep.
When they had pretty much every one of their defenders on, that usually play first and second level, all up on the line of scrimmage, and then obviously some drop back into coverage, and then this one particular play, he had a guy running like a 10 or 15-yard dig, and he just automatically assumed because everybody was up on the line of scrimmage that spot was going to be wide open, that window was going to be wide open, and he nearly threw an interception because one of the defenders that was up on the line of scrimmage dropped back into coverage, and not just dropped back into coverage, like sprinted backwards into coverage to fill up that window really, really fast, and Stroud didn't even see him. And so there are ways that the Steelers can do things without having to blitz, without having to play this soft zone. I would say just try to confuse him as much as possible pre-snap. That would be what I think the Steelers, and the Steelers are definitely known to do that. Obviously, it's not Dick LeBeau's defense anymore, where they were doing one down linemen and all the zone blitzes and everything like that, but they still can throw some exotic looks that can help confuse a rookie quarterback for sure.
The Texans have faced the Ravens, the Colts, and the Jaguars. Really, the Ravens have, their own pass rush to do really well. But this is what the key is going to be for the Steelers. It's going to be TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith getting into that backfield quickly, and Keanu Benton getting into that backfield quickly to kind of force CJ Stroud to either get out on the run, throw on the run, or just break plays up as far as timing is concerned. Now, whether that forces Terrell Austin to go into soft coverage or press coverage or whatever it needs to be, I think regardless of what kind of coverage that secondary plays, and you might want to play tighter coverage because TJ and Alex are more than likely going to be in the backfield quicker than they would anticipate, just solely based on personnel. Like TJ Watt's going to be better than whatever third left tackle the Texans put out there, or rather Alex Highsmith is. And then TJ is going to be better than this backup right tackle that they have. So you would expect TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith to make an impact in this game based on that. And then from there, that will flow into that secondary. And by the way, I know we talked about him yesterday, and I've seen a couple of comments about him today. Cole Holcomb has played well over the last couple of games. Like Cole Holcomb is a really solid linebacker, replacement or new guy, whatever you want to label him as, coming in and new to this defense this year. So schematic matchup is one thing. The other thing is personnel, and the Steelers have more personnel on their defense, I think, than the Texans have on their offense. And that's not to say the Texans stink by any means, because look what they just did to Jacksonville. Chris, I saw. I know.
There's a debate here. There's a debate.
Jaguars, not wires.
Okay. Did you hear me say Jaguars? Because I definitely think that I'm saying Jaguars.
Jacksonville Jaguars. I say wars. Don't I?
I feel like I'm saying wars, but then again, I say certain words, and my wife makes fun of me about this all the time. I will say certain words, and she will repeat it back to me the way she hears it, and I'm like, I'm not saying it like that. She goes, no, yes, you are. You are saying it like that. I'm like, I promise I'm not. And then I'll like somehow she'll she's recorded me before and being like, shown me. I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's so I feel like I'm saying Jaguars. Thank you, Justin, for the $5 contribution. That's awesome.
He says can't let DK and Moan get all the love. Well, we appreciate the love from you, Justin. We appreciate the love from from those tuning in as well. We appreciate you leaving a like, you leaving a comment, whether it's Biad saying the Jacksonville Jagoffs. Look,
oh man,
call them what you want. You can call them what you want, but this is not the Steelers' opponent this week. They're coming up, of course, pretty soon
later down the
Steelers.
Season.
Pretty soon here.
Got the Texans coming up.
Oh gosh, Chris is going to be there for that.
I'm going to be there. I am covering the game. I got my parking pass today. I'll get my credential whenever I get there. But I'm excited. First game. I'll be in the press box this season. Have not been to that. It used to be Reliant Stadium. I don't even know what it's called anymore.
Yeah.
But I have not been down there before. I've been to Houston before. Been to Minute Maid Park in Houston before, but I have not been to the Texans Stadium. So that will be another check off the list.
Bink's making fun of Pittsburgh accents. Let me tell you something.
They're bad.
Let me tell you something. I have the distinct pleasure of having a Youngstown accent and blending it with the Pittsburgh accent.
The Brands.
So the Brands. So
Brands.
I have the Youngstown accent. I say different things that Northeast Ohioans would say, because that's where I grew up in a technical sense, Northeast Ohio. But I've lived in Pittsburgh now. I mean, I've lived here in the area, I guess, region, if you want to call it that, forever. But I've lived in the Pittsburgh area for just about a year. And, picking up on stuff slowly
it grows
but surely.
on you fast.
It does.
It really does, man.
It does.
So,
Ooh,
like, okay.
Barber puts the puke emoji for the Pittsburgh accent.
Okay.
Oh man,
it's hilarious because so I'm from I was born and raised in New Jersey, but both of my parents were born and raised in Moon Township, and so I grew up that's
what I'm talking about, CJ.
Yeah,
Youngstown boys in the house. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Sorry, Chris.
So I grew up in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, so that's like almost like mini New York, and so I'm sure as a kid I don't know, but I'm sure I had like a northern New Jersey accent. But then I moved to Pittsburgh and was there for a year and a half, and almost completely transformed into like a very soft Yinzer accent. But then obviously I moved to Texas and have lived in Texas for more than 2 decades now, and so I have certain words that come out and it comes out very Texan. And then I still find myself saying catch or anything like that. Just every now and then. It just Youngstown. It just comes out, man.
Brent wants a history lesson.
Teresa.
Brent wants a history lesson. Why are they called the Texans and not the Oilers? Because simple answer. When they moved to Tennessee, when they moved to Nashville, the Titans retained the Oilers history.
Yeah.
So the Texans literally can't use Oilers. Go ahead and bring up what you were going to bring up from
Teresa. Okay. So this is awesome. I have the distinct pleasure of having a hybrid American British accent. That is awesome, by the way. And then second off, my stepmom is Scottish and she can actually dial it down so that we can understand her better, but then she can dial it right back up so that she is super thick. And to be honest, I almost want to hear her talk a little bit more with a really thick Scottish accent, just because I love it. I do. So all areas of the Brit, when you talk, English or Welsh or Scottish or Irish, I'll take it all. Love the British accents.
Is it pop or soda?
Soda for me. It's always been soda.
Oddly enough, it's soda for me too because of my time in New York. It was
New
soda
Jersey for me.
It was soda up in New York for me. So
yeah.
I'm used to that. There you go, Mark. Neighbors, Houston, couple hours from him.
Heck yeah, man. 4-hour drive for me from the Dallas area down to Houston. So
I like seeing the diversity in the comments here on YouTube because different dialects, different regions. We're all from around the world. We're all from different walks of life and everything. And I think it's awesome that this worldwide community can come together every Monday through Friday, 3 to 3:30, right here for Southside Beat. Talk a little Steeler football or soda versus pop. Look, we're getting soda versus pop. Jerry combines it soda pop, and I've heard that, of course. I mean, combining soda, soda versus pop. Do you say, those kinds of words? What's the version that you go with, or what's the accent or the dialect? I love that kind of talk. Steelers versus Texans, of course, coming up on Sunday. Tomorrow on Thursday will be Coordinator Thursday.
Yeah.
As the usual. And to be honest with you, Chris, after so much talk about the offense and what the Steelers need to do, what they need to build on, I think we pretty much saw what needed to come to the field on Sunday and what now needs to be built upon. And I'm sure Matt Canada will talk about that tomorrow. But I think another issue to talk about, maybe not issue, I think the bigger deal to me this week is going to be the defense and talking to Terrell Austin and getting his thoughts on the rookie quarterback and the young, exciting weapons that the Texans have, and really how the Steelers are able to kind of build off of an effort from the Raiders. This isn't just a one-sided thing where the Steelers offense has to build under, as Justin says, Matt can't. That's what Justin says. But this defense now has something to build off of. They give up a lot of points, of course, to the 49ers. They win the game for the Steelers against the Browns with the 2 turnovers. And they put a pretty good showing out against the Raiders. And, of course, it was helped because Josh McDaniels doesn't know basic math. So now it's going to come down to this defense taking that next step as well. We've said it on this show, Chris. As a whole, the secondary hasn't played great. Yeah. TJ and Alex have been all world this year. The linebackers are getting better, but there's still steps for this defense to take too.
Yeah. First off, Don asks a hard-hitting question here, Jimmy's or sprinkles. And again, formative years were in New Jersey. So for me, it's sprinkles. It's
sprinkles for me as well.
But when it comes to defending CJ Stroud and this Texans, which by the way, CJ Stroud not thrown a pick yet. So that is very impressive for a rookie. He's one of the very few quarterbacks in the NFL who hasn't thrown one yet. It is interesting because if you're going to run more, it's Creek Monongahela, Mike. I know it's Crick in Pittsburgh, but it's Creek.
Oh, I say Crick. I say Crick.
But no, so there are different ways you can throw exotic looks at him. One thing that you could do, especially when you're trying to defend the deep ball, you could obviously run more cover 2. That way you have a safety on either side. But you can also show cover 2, run cover 1 robber, which, usually the free safety or just one of the safeties. And typically it's Minka who will come up and actually play cover 1 and take away somebody down low or take away an area or, somewhere, down low on the second level. There are different things that you can do to mess with the quarterback. And so, and Rick brings it up here, CJ is going to get picked. If there's ever a week, in which CJ is going to get picked, it's going to be when, a Steelers defense, which has been very opportunistic so far, it would be this week. And if the Steelers have their way, they will absolutely be the first team to pick off CJ Stroud because are we getting wash and wash?
Yeah, it's washer for me. Washing machine.
So it's funny because if I would have grown up in either Pittsburgh or Texas, I would definitely say Warsh or Warsher because it is also Warsh in like the especially like the further east you get in Texas, like you get to East Texas, it is definitely Warsh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Wash for me.
I say washer because I'm from Ohio. It is a buggy, not a cart.
No, it's cart.
When you go shopping, it's a buggy, not a cart.
Cart.
When you have to clean your house, you run the sweeper, not the vacuum.
No, it's a vacuum cleaner.
No, it's a sweeper.
It's a sweeper. Listen, a lot of the Pittsburghese stuff, like somebody could ask me anything about Pittsburghese. I'll almost guarantee I know what it means when somebody tells me Kennywood's open. Like I'm very, very much familiar with the Pittsburghese dialect and all the sayings and
Hoover. Yes, Teresa Hoover. I've heard that one. The Hoovers. I've heard that one for vacuum cleaners. Yeah, vacuum machines is one I've never heard of, though, admittedly. It's a sweeper. It's always been a sweeper for me. Regardless of what you say, whether it's vacuum, whether it's Hoover, whether it's sweeper, we're out of here on a Wednesday on the South Side Beat. Tomorrow's Coordinator Thursday, which is always a fun day.
Oh, yeah.
Which is always a good day when Matt Canada and Terrell Austin take to the mic.
I'm sure we will have some sort of reaction to something Matt Canada said, but I almost feel like going into this Coordinator Thursday, it's not like, oh my God, this is like we have to sit and wait to see what Matt Canada says now. It almost feels like it's died down a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, bring your gun bands. I don't need to bring gun bands. I don't need to unless I want to try to shoot somebody with, I know what a gun band is. Like I'm telling you.
I don't think we'll need those tomorrow. At least not yet. We'll see.
Final thought, Corey.
My final thought. I will be recording H2P tonight at 6:00. If you're a Pitt fan, tune in 6 p.m. Right here on DK Pittsburgh Sports on the Pitt channel. And will I be kinder today than I was last week? I don't know, but Pitt's 1-3, and it's not looking great for them right now. So we'll air those grievances out at 6:00 in about 2.5 hours or so.
Final thought. One more on the thing. It's tomato. If I grew up in maybe England or something like that, I'd say tomato.
And it's a sub, by the way. It's a sub.
It is a sub. I do hear people say hoagies, and
it's a sub. Thank you all for listening. For Chris, I'm Corey. This has been the Southside Beat on Wednesday. We'll talk to you Thursday. Cheers, everybody.